It's currently 5 a.m., I think. I have a newborn in the next room, and I really need to get this video done by Tuesday because apparently Tuesday is the most important election of our lifetime, yet again. So I'll cut to the chase. I have been meaning to post a standalone video of just myself on this channel for a while, but I did not expect my first to be looking like a hostage video. But anyway, in this video, I want to share with you guys my immigration journey. This is just an anecdotal story of my journey to the United States, my reasons for staying, and eventually becoming a US citizen. A citizen who can vote, to the horrors of many. I want to share my story not to paint all immigrants with a broad brush, but to humanize us. People migrate for different reasons and every story is different, but at the end of the day, we are all human. And that is something that should not be lost on us, no matter who is in power. So I hope that my story might enlighten you on the immigration process, difficulties of navigating the law, the obstacles in the road of gaining and keeping legal status in the United States as an alien resident, and the reasons why people so often make the difficult choice of leaving their homes, their bases in the first place. I will get detail about how much it all costs because money was definitely the biggest obstacle for me. I will also share the emotional cost, my reasons, and I will also respond to this fucking guy.
I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand.
But before we get to him, what did it take to become a US citizen? Anecdotal story. I entered the country under a J1 visa. J1 visa, a visa for cultural exchange programs. In my case, it was an au pair program. I have previously also entered under a student visa. This was an F1 visa. This visa cost overall $510, but it is irrelevant. That was the first short time, one semester in Texas, and then I went back to my home country to graduate. So the J1 visa, with every visa application, typically you need to pay fees for submitting your documentation, biometrics, and for an interview if that's mandated. In my case, the J1 visa required for me to submit documentation that was $220. There was also an application fee that was non-refundable. None of this is refundable. That cost around $200 again. Interview cost was $185, and the biometrics cost, I think, $85. So overall, I believe I paid around $500 to $600, and that excludes any notary fees, translation fees, testing fees, agency fees, broker fees. I honestly don't remember because that was back in 2005. I just remember it cost a lot, but I did it. I entered the country and I became an au pair. It was my intention to come to the United States for 1 year after I graduated at the age of 26. It was my last chance to have a little bit of a gap year and my little last hooray before I had to become an actual adult and get a job and spend the rest of my life working. So I just wanted to delay that by an extra year. Applied for this program, successfully navigated through it, entered the United States, truly intended to stay here for a year, get back with experience, shave off a little bit of that thickness in my Czech English accent, be in a better position to negotiate for a better pay when I get back home. Yada, yada, yada. You can hear all about this in our other podcast. I met Chris and we ended up getting married toward my J1 visa expiration date. This action, getting married, made my J1 visa null and void, and I became an illegal immigrant. However, I immediately applied for permanent residence with the USCIS as an alien relative. Applying for that was an actual administrative hell and it destroyed us financially. As an au pair, I was making $200 a week and Chris made very little income working at a local brewery. Everything I saved through my au pair journey, everything that I saved, I spent on all those legal fees. Here are all the things that I had to fill out, correctly 100% or lose all of my savings, husband, and be deported. No pressure. So the filing fee for family-based green card is a whooping 3,000 or so American dollars. And that's for applicants within the United States. It is less if you are outside of the United States, but it also takes longer. And mind you, these figures are for straightforward cases and they exclude any complicated processing. They also exclude medical exam, which you have to pay for out of pocket, which can vary by provider. And again, depending on where you are in the United States, costs a lot. So the total I mentioned, the $3,000, does include the fee for forms I-485, which is the application to register permanent residence or adjust status, I-130, which is the petition for alien relative, and I-765, which is the application for employment authorization. You have to submit all three at once if you want to be able to participate in society and be able to get a job. This took me about a month to gather, fill out, and send out. So for about a month, I was in the country illegally. And then after 2 months, my family experienced a terrible loss. My mom video called me to let me know about my grandmother's passing. Now, this is a person who actually raised me while both of my parents were working to feed me and my brother. I was devastated and I wanted to go home desperately. I was already fragile. I was extremely depressed. I was upset that I couldn't work. I was experiencing poverty and I was extremely, extremely homesick. And I also felt like this country didn't want me. Did I mention that all of this was happening under fresh Trump presidency in 2016? Yep. So basically, even if I did manage to salvage money to go home to visit my grieving family, I was stuck in a legal limbo and I just could not leave the country because I would not be allowed to re-enter and be back with my husband. And I'm not mentioning this anecdotal story in my anecdotal immigration journey so that you feel bad for me. I'm mentioning it so that people who hate immigrants understand what a lot of us go through. And please understand that everything I went through, I still went under a tremendous amount of privilege. I am married to an American citizen. I entered into the country from a place that has good relations with the United States, including a visa deferral program. And as somebody with English fluency so advanced that I didn't need legal help when filing all of my paperwork. Not that I didn't look for it, but that would have been an additional thousands of dollars that I really, really didn't have. This tragic event motivated me to expedite the processing on my application, and that was even more money. The fee for premium processing right now is $1,685 for work authorization and $1,965 for green card application processing. But did you know what I need to feel truly American? An amount of debt that I, a fragile European with a master's degree, have not been burdened with before. And so, after about 5 months, I received approval for both, and my master's degree ass went to work at a restaurant by our house because we also didn't have a car. At this point in my journey, I paid over $7,000 in legal and administrative fees just to keep my legal status and be able to work without risking being taken advantage of. I also paid taxes ever since I entered the country, even under my student visa, just like all immigrants do, despite not being able to be eligible for most of the infamous welfare state benefits that the Republicans keep insisting to cut. Make no mistake. Besides emergency Medicaid, most immigrants are not eligible for anything for at least 5 years after entering the country. And without citizenship, you really aren't eligible for anything, even after those 5 years. And I mean, how could you? When even US citizens have to be making under $15,060 a year to be eligible for meager benefits. I'll cut the rest of the story short. After spending an additional $1,600, give or take, to become a citizen, I received my official citizenship status in 2020. So, what were the major obstacles that I experienced in this process? Biggest one for me was money. Secondarily, my obstacle was also the language barrier because while I am fluent and while I have master's degree in English, reading, understanding, and trying to fill out those lengthy applications correctly was really challenging. And being able to do that without legal help is something I will never stop being proud of. But I understand why people have issues filing this. It is so extremely difficult. It is designed to be as difficult as possible, just like the United States tax system, so that there are other entities that can profit from people needing help. So the money and the language barrier are such major obstacles that prevent people from applying or renewing their paperwork simply because it is unaffordable and inaccessible. Now, here are other obstacles I personally did not have to deal with, but other immigrants do. I didn't deal with fear of being persecuted. I didn't have to deal with the pressure or fear of being persecuted or fear of being killed if I were to be deported and returned to my home country. I also didn't have to deal with the racism in my community and racial profiling during traffic stops or being asked my status. Never. I was never asked about my status. Even in 2016, I was never afraid of being deported during emergencies while seeking medical care, etc. If I needed to go to the hospital, I just went to the hospital. So, Mr. J.D. Vance complains that Kamala open border policy makes it possible for people to pour into the country and get a fat check from the welfare state, assigned 3-bedroom apartment with a litter box and a cat affirming surgery. But the only thing that a CBP1 does is allowing people to enter the country legally, apply for status easily, be monitored, and report in a timely manner. It streamlines the legal immigration process for immigrants as well as the USCIS and the ICE workers. It's a fucking phone app which is much easier and accessible than fax. The most dangerous things that I've heard people say in this election cycle, aside from reproductive rights, which I'm not gonna get into right now, is that the suggestion that the laws regulating the points of entry are in fact not legal. This rhetoric is dangerous and has a potential to open a Pandora's box that would make it possible, but not legal, to deport all legal migrants, asylum seekers, agricultural workers, alien relatives, etc. I'm a citizen now, I'm safe. Maybe, who knows? But this is just, I hope you guys see how this could just completely devolve into something else along with the mass deportation stuff. Anybody who enters this country legally is armed with legal protection, which is why they do it. That is why I applied for a work permit in the first place. I wanted to make sure that I get paid for my labor and that I can go to court if I'm not. If this protection is not guaranteed, why would people spend thousands of dollars out of the goodness of their hearts? Ask yourselves. Would you be motivated enough just by the goodness of your heart to abide by the law that does not apply to you, that does not protect you, and marks you a criminal even though you've never committed crime in your entire life? The Haitian immigrants in Springfield are in the country legally and have work permits. Any asylum seeker with pending status is also in this country legally. If you don't want them here, aim your anger at the American employers that hire them, or the American foreign policies that created so many refugees in the first place. Do not blame the people who only want to live, work, and pursue their happiness just like you. See, we're not so different. But there is one hater in the room.
That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP1 app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.